Hi and welcome back to another episode of Sprue Talk. It's been a while with me on the in the middle chair, but today I'm joined by Luke, Airfix researcher, and Ethan, one of our Airfix product designers. Thanks, chaps.
Thank
for
you.
joining us. I know it was a last minute thing this morning, but we get it in early doors. I've had my coffee. I don't know about you boys. You've not had your hot chocolate yet?
No, not yet. It's too hot. Too hot for a hot chocolate.
No, it's not. No, not for you.
Yeah.
Not for me yet, just the water, but I've had my saurine bar, so full of energy.
Is that your breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
What sort of flavour saurine bar?
It's the malt loaf.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, classic.
Classic.
Yeah.
Luke,
No,
breakfast?
no breakfast. No.
No
breakfast.
breakfast, you're running off fumes.
Yeah. I'm fueled by just passion for research. You see.
Oh,
That's good line. It's good line. I should have come up with something like
how do we
that.
outdo that now?
There you go. You know.
I don't believe you've not had a breakfast.
No, I haven't.
Are you getting a McDonald's on your research trip on the way out here?
Who knows? You know.
There we are.
yes.
We found it.
That's a
We found
yes.
it. Well, I had a banana, so
there
and
you
an
go.
espresso. So that's going to be me climbing the walls for the next couple
Breakfast
of
of
hours.
champions.
Yeah, banana and espresso. Breakfast of modelers. So today we thought we'd, I thought very quickly this morning, early doors, that bring both Luke and Ethan in and we can talk about the brand new 1/35th scale Ferret Mk.2. It's Ethan's first product.
Yeah, first full thing, which
Yeah.
very exciting.
And how long had you been in before you started researching this one?
Or probably 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
A year. I think we're about 6 months different in joining the company, aren't we? So
It was quite early on with me arriving
Yeah.
and then this starting, so
Yeah, definitely.
it must be about that. So I guess the first thing is, why the Ferret and why 1/35th scale?
The Ferret, because there wasn't a model out there in injection moulding typical kits, which really shocked us that it hadn't been done. It'd been done by sort of mixed media kit manufacturers before, but that's not where we work. And so we thought, well, this is perfect. You know, looking at British, which is definitely our niche, that's where we work generally, British Cold War vehicles, how can we sort of look to get into the marketplace? The Ferret was the perfect thing. And it's just a lovely little vehicle, and not until we started researching did you realise just how many people have them still, which is a great thing because you get to, on research trips, you get to ride around in them, so it's not
true.
every day.
Yeah, it's very good for us.
And 35th scale generally is the armour scale. We've obviously worked in 76th and 72nd previously, and we've been a bit lacking at 35th, so it was a way to sort of kickstart that for us.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So we have a range of 35th scale armour, of course. We partner with a third company for the majority of that. We do have our own tools within that range already. Cromwell, the 38-ton truck, the Austin ambulance, as mentioned probably at the moment. But this is a in-house design product, tooled, where we normally tool our products and manufactured in India, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Why have we done this in the morning? Which is a bit different. So again, you know, that I was amazed when this product was suggested, and we do listen to all product suggestions. We can't reply to them all, but we do go through them and skim read them. And I was amazed to find out that there is no competitor for this in injection moulding.
No, it really is quite shocking, and it came from a suggestion at Bovington, of
Yeah.
all places, didn't it?
Yeah.
And you know they have quite a few there, and yeah, you just have to. Why had no one done it? You know the predecessors had been done, Dingoes and Daimler Scout cars, but not the Ferret, which is arguably the most famous Scout car of recent memory. You know?
And it's still being used in some nations now.
Yeah,
in fact, so
African nations, and the Middle East generally,
it's
for riot control and things like that. So yeah.
incredible. I remember we were heading over to Biggin Hill
Yeah.
for a talk on something. It
Just
wasn't a research
One
trip,
on the
don't worry.
drive, wasn't there?
And there was just one sat there, and it's like literally you can't
escape.
move
No,
for ferrets.
it's crazy.
And then every research trip that any of us go on now, we're guaranteed a photo of a ferret somewhere, aren't we? So
Yeah. I've just started ignoring them. I've seen two.
never. So how did the research go on the Ferret? Obviously, there's loads of them. So, was it a fairly easy process with this product, or was it made complicated because of its long service and its continued service?
Yes and no. So it's easy because there's loads of them, and that also complicates things. It was in terms of research, we normally research years ahead. So I'm working on stuff for 27, 28 sort of things. The Ferret was unique in that it was a suggestion that came up, and we thought we have to jump at this because it's a big gap in the market. And luckily enough, we had the designer starting, yourself. And so sort of the stars aligned, and it meant that I had to pull my finger out and do a bit of research. And we were actually researching further into the design than we normally would. We try and research beforehand, which adds a bit more pressure. Luckily, we have a Ferret down the road near Sandwich, which is our basis for the model. It's a fixed turret variant that we scanned, and that was the start of it. But what complicates it with everyone having one is that people bolt various things on. As Dale sort of alluded to, it had a long service life, so there were different aerial fits throughout, different radios, different side panels, different bins, and you have to sort of rationalise that into a kit that's not going to be. You're going to build a kit and then still have a kit left over because you've got so many option parts. There's things that change between vehicles that you just, because of the scale, you have to go, right, we're going to do this version or this version, because some of the differences are so minor that you can't cater for it all. As long as it looks like a Ferret and all the details are there, then it's great. But yeah, everyone having one complicates it, and it means doing a lot more work, a lot more legwork, visiting various places to try and understand all the differences. I think one of our first trips, without really realising just how many were around the local area, was to the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
Which
so far to go, but there's probably about 50 just around the corner.
Yeah. But
as it turns out, there are.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a reason for going there, in that they had a 2.6 which had missiles mounted to the side of the turret. It's a version we haven't done, because upon inspection you realise that the whole mechanism for the turret changes.
Yeah.
It's a geared mechanism rather than just free floating. The sights change, the way the top hatch moves changes. Stuff you wouldn't have been able to tell from images. And one of the difficulties with the Ferret is that there's not a lot of written information on it. So Spitfires, there's a million books on Spitfires and telling you all the slight differences, different parts of Merlin, etc., etc. Not so much on the Ferret. So it was a lot more primary research, whereas normally we do a bit of primary research and rely on secondary sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're always conscious, you mentioned there, we're always conscious of part count and the overall weight of the plastic that goes into the product to try and keep that entry level price point as low as possible.
Yeah.
And this is about £24. So we have only released the Mk.2 without the rockets and all sorts of weird and wonderful things that were bolted on it during its lifetime. But that does allow aftermarket to go and do all those niche things that quite simply we will never touch, because it's not worth the investment in design and tooling for the extra few you would most probably sell.
Although one thing Ethan and I still do to this day is whenever we're searching for Ferret things, you'll always find another image of a Ferret with a crazy modification. I think it's a 105mm recoilless rifle on the top. It's like an anti-tank gun, that's just mounted on top. And there's modernised Ferrets, ones that have added wheels and crazy things. So we just constantly send images to each other.
Exactly, yeah, it's fun. I was just saying before, it's just one of those things, so many different bits were just bolted on. It was so easy to do what you wanted with it. That, as I say, they make some crazy things. Turning a Ferret into basically just a full tank, but it's still a little Ferret below, is just so funny to look at.
Yeah,
it's cool. The so from the research then, Luke went and did his thing, which we all know he's very good at. How did you get involved? At what point did you get involved as part of that?
Yeah, so it was really quick into coming in, because I'd known the different CAD software. So I've done loads of CAD softwares before, but I hadn't done the one we do in-house here. So basically doing the conversion then straight into it. So quite quick really, but I say we've got loads of good designers here, like all helping us out. So showing me the processes and, getting the base skeleton models, all that sorted. And then, just talking to everyone to really get into it. It was quite useful, as we were saying, getting to see lots of ferrets before starting.
Yeah.
Because when we went down to the Isle of Wight, we saw, must have been like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, just getting a feel of what it is, and yeah, you kind of need to understand what it's like and what's inside, and all the weird sort of shapes before you start getting into the actual model, because they're going to catch you out further down the line.
Well, also how it moves,
Yeah.
how it articulates,
They're-
both. But the hatches, how far up do they come? How do the wheels move around the suspension? I know on this model you went to a lot of work with the suspension, and there's a bit of play in the wheels, isn't there? But there isn't sort of full movement.
No.
And that adds so much to this model.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's the size of a passport, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember you.
That's how we compared it.
Yeah, I remember I was out somewhere, a meeting off site somewhere. Then I got a photo from Luke saying Ferret stereo is in, which is
The one that
which
was
is
filed
there,
there,
which is
yeah.
3D printed, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" But how big is it? It was
Yeah,
just on it was just
exactly.
on your desk,
Yeah.
wasn't it? I was like, and then you had your passport, and you just sat it next to your passport. I was like, "That is a cool size, model."
I think it's really good for stuff like dioramas. I think it really helps with the fact that you've got something small. It allows for a bit more space, work when you're displaying it on your shelves and stuff like that. I think there's so many cool things you can do with it. It'd be really exciting to see.
And our competitors' range of 35th scale complements, or this complements them.
Yeah.
The era that.
Cold War
span.
armour's a big thing, and arguably British stuff had been neglected a bit, especially Ferret, as we discussed.
Yeah.
So it's sort of adding to that Cold War range, which is really nice, as you say. It sort of complements other competitors.
Yeah, how could you have a 1/35th scale model collection of post-war vehicles and not have a Ferret?
No, yeah.
That's the aim.
Exactly, yeah.
It'd be pretty cool to see that in our sales numbers. Please. Cool. So I know from talking to Martin Ridge, our development manager, if it's the development manager, whenever we take new designers on, we always like to avoid giving them aircraft because they're complex shapes and stuff. Now, I know you've worked on some aircraft now, but we can't talk about them.
Yeah.
So I've not given anything away. So obviously, as a first design for you coming into the business, Ferret reasonably simple from a flat shape point of view.
It had those awkward things where, although it's flat surfaces, a good example of it really is kind of, I guess, where the driver's sitting. It's a lot of strange angles coming into one point,
Right.
but it's hollow inside. So it's really hard to get good support in that sort of bit. So getting the splits right was, I must have gone through it like at least a few times, trying to work out what's going to be the most stable thing. And that's obviously what's helpful about the printing as well, to make sure that's fine. So it did get quite complex quite quick, especially when it's small parts, say working hinges, all the suspension. But then other bits in it, it's like a breeze. As I say, it's with the aircraft, you've got such strange shapes which are like all warped around strange angles, where at least with these, if you're putting details on, it's on a flat surface.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 50-50. I still say it was really hard.
It's not the
but
first
other
time
bits were
I've said
different.
relatively simple when
Yeah.
I've never designed anything.
Yeah.
And
I think we came away from it saying your second project was the Land Rover,
it's
and
so
we
much
said
easier.
we should have definitely
Yeah,
swapped
it was
those.
so much easier.
Should have done that first.
Yeah, as I say, it was good kind of like, get thrown into it. And I'd say actually, with having so much more parts and it being a bit more complicated here, it's obviously made things now a lot easier. I say with the Land Rover, way less parts, but still a simple shape. It made me know like the limitations a lot better, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
just for the folks out there that don't know, that's the brand new released Land Rover Series 1 starter set, which came out
Available in the shop near you.
same week as the
And me.
Ferret. Yeah. So, which is 1/43rd scale,
Yeah.
isn't there? There's a lot of comments saying, why didn't we do 48 scale? Which is sort of, would have been nice, but obviously we'd already started up a range of 43rd scale
Well, we've
cars.
got the data for a Land Rover now, haven't
yeah.
we? Who's to say
Yeah.
we'll never do one?
Yeah.
Other scales.
You've heard it here, folks. First. That's cool. So did you, let's talk us through the data that Luke gave you and then how you started out. So you used the scan data first, or did you have any drawings to help you with this project or not?
No,
So it's
not
pure...
really. So we had some manuals. So there was a little bit of stuff, but it's not like aircraft drawings where there's you find thousands of stuff and you know exactly the measurements. So yeah, got the scan, imported that in, and then started building the skeleton model off that. Once again, we were saying earlier about the research. I'm getting the base shape down for that skeleton model, but we're still deciding how many bits are going in and what parts are there. And I was saying there's so much stuff. It's agreeing on that, and that was why we kind of start off simple with that base shape, and that's what we normally do anyway.
Yeah.
And then start going to parts later, and it gives a bit more freedom of adding different things and messing about with it.
I love the fact that you can open all the hatches up, which for those viewers that have ever been in a Ferret are basically finger traps. Yeah. As I nearly found out to my peril, or to one of my pinkies, and then was talking to someone after, and he showed me his hand, and I was like, Jesus. And I was like, how did you do that?
Ferret fingers.
Ferret.
Yeah,
ferret fingers. Bloody hell. So I was very lucky there.
Yeah.
And the front driver's view hatch, if you like, as we found out, you can actually get in and out of it.
Yep.
Yep.
So you can do it really easily.
You're a lot easier than me.
We've done this, and that video's to come very soon. Yeah. Now we've cleared the music.
Nice.
So, or a version of the music, should I say. So I love the extra details that have been added to this Ferret. So what are there? There's fuel. There's like fuel canisters. There's like
water
sand.
tank. There's sand channels for the front. All the different tools you need, like spade, pickaxe, parts like that.
The different side bins. There's one of the more small details is that the ribs that run down them, some of them are vertical and some of them are horizontal. So that was a big enough thing that we thought we should include options for.
Oh, you've got two different side bins.
Side bins, yeah. It's because I think we were going through pictures. I was going, wait, hang on. Is that vertical? And it's like Luke's like, yeah, there are two versions. I'm like, okay, well, we'll get that sorted out. And there's enough of them of different ones where it's like you kind of need both.
There's one that we didn't do, and that was so you mentioned sand channels on the front. There is another pierced steel planking, PSPs, and they were too hard to do at scale. And one of the nifty things you've done is where they normally mount two on top of each other, because we're limited by the thickness of plastic. You've offset them as one part to make it look like two that are slightly misaligned, but it's actually just a single.
Because otherwise it just looked too chunky. As I say, I think we did two and had a look, and it's just looks not appropriate at 35th. So
not just a pretty face.
Yeah, there is something going on up
there. When we showcased these down at the Bovington Tank Fest a few months ago. Was you there?
I wasn't.
No, you wasn't there. I was there. James was there, and a few others. But so we took them for the first time on their outing. The amount of people that had a story about a Ferret, either they drove one or they had a relative that drove one or they worked, whatever, was amazing. And everyone liked the fact that all the hatches opened. And there was some interior detail, and everyone was asking me about the radios. So what is it about the radios in a Ferret?
So they're quite prominent. So there's not a full interior, and that's something we did a lot of back and forth on, because it's so limited in terms of what you can see. But there was a change. So there's Larkspur and there's Klansman fits. There are lots of sub fits within, and you can sort of tell by the mounts on the outside quite often. So we sort of simplified it down into the most common sorts, which took a lot of looking at images from what I remember and measuring. But they sit right at the back towards these rear two hatches. So it's the thing you can see the most. They're right on top of what I believe is the gearbox. So we had to include them.
Yeah. I was showing people one of the frames. I'm just pointing at the radios on here, and they were like, "Yeah, that's what did you call them?
Klansman and Larks."
That's it. I would have got that completely mixed up. But so that was good that they could spot them,
Yeah.
identify them straight off the frame.
It's as you said earlier that it had such a long service life that the radios changed throughout, and we had to cater for that. You know, it was serving right up to the Gulf War. So you've got to think they would have modernised it between 1952, I think it is, to 1990 whatever.
Yeah.
I think they started leaving in 1993 and sort of making their way to TA and various bits, but they kept up with radio technology.
It's one of those parts as well that for me it's so much easier to put a bunch of detail in because it's all coming in from one direction. So you don't have to worry about like draft angles and how it's all moulding. So you've basically got the blank canvas to really pack that full. And for parts like that, it's really good because, as I say, it's like the core thing you see when you look inside.
Yep.
So you want that really like showing off in a sense if you are modelling it with the hatches open.
Yeah.
So
you can easily see the steering wheel because it's that really funny,
really
awkward
weird angle, isn't it?
angle. Yeah.
So just creating and detailing that level of parts just does take a very long time, and obviously they all have to be compatible and think about build orders and all things like that.
So then we've got the engineering time after that. So
Yeah.
6 months for design.
Then what I'd say it's a lot of back and forth with the toolers, just for like making the drawings and the layouts, and as well them just making it and then doing all the test shots. And I'm pretty sure that must have taken about. Trying to think when the last one. It must have been like February this year. I think was when we approved that. Then you get pre-production samples as well from India.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Then we announced this in January, of course, and then we're scheduling it in amongst everything else. So we couldn't have released them any earlier. I know that.
yeah.
But I would have done if we could.
Yeah, it's just such a long. As I say, like that's in itself about 12 months, and that's without everything happening afterwards with the instructions, box art.
I mean, if you look at the Ferret compared to the Land Rover in sort of, they arrived at the same week, you can see that the Ferret took that much longer to engineer through because of its complexity as a project compared to a starter set.
Exactly, yeah, I got the Land Rover approved before the Ferret. So it just shows that with something like that, I mean, you get a set of test shots of 187 parts and you're building it probably about 3 times for every set of test shots. Doing that 3 or 4 times, and like that's a whole week you just spent building and just analysing everything you can. So definitely, makes that process a lot longer.
I can't wait to build one, I must admit. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sat in the middle, but I love armour, and I've always had a little soft spot, so to speak, for ferrets. So if I could afford a ferret, or if I could afford an armoured car and store it somewhere, it would definitely be a Ferret. I'd love to rock up at Tesco's in it and go and do my shopping.
It's so good.
That's why so many people have them. It is the most affordable armoured vehicle that you can purchase, really. And because there's such a big community, there's lots of spares and there's lots of advice out there for people who do own them. One of my mates has one, which is great. He does go to the shops in it. And I always get people going, I saw a Ferret in Herne Bay. I know
the
driving that one. Yeah.
There was a Cougar wagon or Schwinn wagon in Herne Bay. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
The local town to us, and I often see that. I know where it resides now. Not that I've been stalking it. I just happened to drive past it a few times. So. And that's just in Sainsbury's car park.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's just got his morning papers in his Schwinn wagon.
Yeah.
I mean. It's absolutely brilliant.
It's all right for some, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'd absolutely, I'd love to get one of these. So, talk me through the Decal schemes because they are quite varied, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's something we're really keen to do. I mean, if you see a Ferret, most of the time nowadays they'll be in bronze green, this green colour, and we wanted to make sure we represented that, but also show some of the different side to the Ferret. So the bronze green one we've done shows a very early Ferret around the time of the Berlin Wall going up, early 60s, I believe. And there's a lovely story and pictures of it happening where a schoolboy had said that he'd been stopped going to school by the East German border guards. He lived in an enclave somewhere and they harassed him so he couldn't go to school. So the British Army said, we're not having that, and provided 2 ferrets, one in front of him, one behind, as he's cycling on his bike to take him to school. And they did that for a week or so and he wasn't bothered, so they stopped doing it. And there's a lovely photo of this ferret with him in front of it cycling along. And the best bit of the story is 30 years later, he was consumed by guilt that he'd made up this story to miss school for a couple of weeks. Imagine the army calling your bluff and providing a ferret for you or two. So that's lovely, and it's great. It has a story behind it, but it shows a typical ferret, what people will probably imagine when they think of a ferret. And the other one, the B scheme, being the UN scheme, but sort of early days of the UN in Cyprus. And it also featured the parachute badge on the side. C scheme. C scheme.
Skip one.
It's because it's the third one's
there.
not there.
Yeah.
So having this white one, it's not all over white, which is quite unique. The suspension, the wheel hubs were still green, so it's sort of a overspray, whereas later they were painted entirely white. And that's one of the more distinctive schemes that you can find. And then the third one, which isn't on the table in front of us,
I know where it is. I should have grabbed it on my way in.
is the Batter scheme. So essentially there's a training field out in Canada, I believe, and the ferrets were used as range safety vehicles. So they were painted bright red on the turret and on the sides, and they had special code letters or code numbers. Basically, don't shoot me. I'm the one telling people how to do it safely. And it's really different, because it's not a frontline role. Most people might not be aware of Sunnyfield training area and what the British Army do out there. Basically, training tank crews how to shoot, and train as a unit, because it's such a wide open space. They can, fantastic thing. That in fact had different radios, going back to an earlier conversation, compared to operational ones, and that's one place where we had to compromise because they just fitted them with Motorola walkie-talkies.
Oh, wow.
So we had to decide, well, we won't do that. But one of the things with schemes is you have to pick quite early what you're doing, especially where a vehicle changes a lot. So the Sunnyfield scheme, the B scheme, is a great example whereby we had to include extra parts to enable us to do it, because there's a side plate and a rear plate.
Over the spare wheel.
Yeah.
Over the spare wheel and then on the back.
Capped off the Browning as well.
Yeah, and capped off the Browning.
Yeah.
So these are parts we wouldn't have put in. And then we'd have got to the end and picked a scheme and gone, oh, we can't really do it because we're missing the parts. Luckily, we came across it early enough that we could design bits, and it's a nice addition to the boxing, having those three schemes all very different from one another.
Yeah, no, I really like the variety that we've got there. Have you painted one up yet?
No, not painted one out. I've built about 100,
No.
but I'm very excited to build and paint one up.
Oh, we're gonna have to get you one to. Or you can get yourself one because you've got loads of plastic kicking around, but. We're going to have a build off of the ferret. So I think. Have you built one and painted one yet?
I've not, no.
Have you built one?
No, don't even think I built one.
Good.
And
I've just been
supplies ready.
stuck in the boots.
We can. You can build it without the instruction sheet then.
Oh yeah,
Again.
Blindfolded as well.
Yeah. See how it goes.
It's very cool. So we were very fortunate, the three of us plus a few others from the team. Nathan behind the camera here, waving. Went and spent the large day locally with a chap called Brian.
Brian, probably the nicest man on this earth.
He's amazing.
Lovely. Yeah,
and his wife's lovely as well. And we drove ferrets for the day, didn't we?
Yep.
We did a load of filming,
Yeah.
which the footage is amazing.
Yeah.
And we're going to get that out very soon, if not before this video. I don't know, I haven't worked that one out yet. But is that the first time you've driven a ferret?
Yeah, first time I've driven one. So we'd been, obviously, on our research trips, gone inside them. Like, God, this would be crazy going. And then you go inside and you're like, yeah, this is crazy. You're bumping around.
I knew he'd driven it before
I've
because...
driven it. But we've done some filming for the K2, which Brian also owns. And he'd been kind enough to let us use that. And he said, do you want to drive the ferret? And I almost killed Nathan behind the camera at one point because he was filming out the top and I went round the corner a bit too fast. I did warn him though, so his own fault really.
So explain, you've got a driving licence, but you don't have a car. So since passing your test, you've not...
This is the first car I've driven since passed my test is a ferret.
Brilliant. So explain the gearbox.
Well, it's a pre-selector. So rather than put the clutch down, put your gear in, then come up slowly on the clutch for manual drivers amongst us, You put it into gear, but it doesn't change gear, and then you stamp on a pedal, and then it goes into that gear you've selected, which is great when you've got an open field ahead of you, because you don't have to do much pre-thinking. But imagine doing that on the roads, and you've got to sort of anticipate what's happening ahead. It's very easy to get yourself into a muddle in terms of doing that.
So you're driving along in first gear, you're speeding up, you've already put it into second gear,
And then you bang on the pedal.
and then when you want
Yeah.
that, you then bang the clutch, and then you go into, and then you have, when you're in second gear, you have to decide whether your next action is first or third.
Yes, yeah. But the coolest thing about the Ferret, though, is that it can go as fast forward as it can in reverse. Not that we tried that.
No,
I don't
we
think
didn't.
any of us are brave enough for it. So it can do about 50 miles an hour in reverse as well as forward over all sorts of terrain. Yeah, I don't fancy that. Especially when you see the seating position, if you build the model, it doesn't really cater for you to look behind and drive.
Well, I guess if you need to get out of a bit of a sticky situation, though, you bang it into reverse and or you hit the button for reverse.
Yeah. Thought you were going to say the ejector seat then.
No.
Wrong
Yeah,
product.
that would be interesting to see the Ferret. You just bounce around.
No, I've seen him try and get out of one very quickly, which is in one of the videos actually. So there definitely isn't an ejector seat.
Not at all.
So thanks very much, guys, for joining me this morning. Apologies again for it being so early, so last minute, but really important to share your stories about the Ferret. I'm definitely challenging you both to the build-off.
Build-off, yeah.
Please, if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to our YouTube video channel, and obviously if you're umming and ahhing about getting a Ferret, go and get one. They're only early £20. They're available on our website, but also our retailers. We've got more stock coming in because we're going to run out of the first batch, which is always a good sign.
Yep.
So thank you very much. Thank you, chaps.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again very soon for another Sprue Talk. Cheers.